I need everyone to listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to say didn't come from a book. It didn't come from a trend, and it didn't come from my opinion. At 3 a.m., when the world was quiet, when distractions were asleep, when excuses had no voice, God woke me up, not to scare me, not to confuse me, but to deliver a message that could change your direction. I didn't come to entertain you. I came to interrupt something. Turn to someone next to you and say, this word might be for me. Some of you are tired but not weak. Some of you are delayed but not denied. Some of you are questioning God, not because you don't believe, but because you do. God told me to tell you this: what you've been going through is not punishment, it's preparation. The reason this word came at 3 a.m. is because it's meant for people who are awake enough to hear truth, brave enough to change, and strong enough to move forward. If you're comfortable, this word is not for you. But if you're desperate for purpose, this message has your name on it. Some of you have been asking God questions in rooms full of people, with phones buzzing, TVs talking, opinions shouting, and expectations pulling on you from every direction. And you wonder why the answer feels distant. You wonder why clarity hasn't arrived yet. You wonder why your spirit feels restless, even though your life looks busy. But here is the truth God woke me up with. Noise is not neutral. Noise drowns discernment. Noise makes urgency feel like importance. Noise convinces you that motion is progress, even when your soul is standing still. Think about your daily life. From the moment you wake up, something is demanding your attention. The alarm goes off. Messages start popping up. Deadlines start screaming. Responsibilities start calling your name. You scroll before you breathe. You react before you reflect. And by the time the day ends, you're exhausted. Not because you did too much, but because you never slowed down enough to hear what actually mattered. You call it being productive, but deep down, you feel disconnected. That disconnection is not laziness. It's not failure. It's a signal. God often waits for the noise to die down, not because he is distant, but because clarity requires space. Have you noticed how the most important realizations in your life didn't come in crowds? They came in the car after a hard conversation. They came in the shower when the world finally shut up. They came late at night when everyone else was asleep and your thoughts finally told the truth. That's not coincidence. That's design. God speaks when you stop performing and start listening. Some of you keep asking for direction, but you refuse stillness. You say you want purpose, but you're afraid of quiet because quiet forces you to face yourself. Silence removes the mask. Silence exposes what you've been avoiding. And that's why so many people stay busy. Busyness is a distraction disguised as responsibility. It keeps you from hearing the one voice that doesn't shout but never lies. Look at your phone habits. The moment there's silence, you reach for it. Not because you need information, but because you don't want to be alone with your thoughts. But what if the answers you're looking for aren't on a screen? What if they're in the stillness you keep escaping? God doesn't always speak louder than your problems. He speaks deeper than your distractions. And if you're constantly filling every quiet moment, you're muting the very guidance you're praying for. Think about times when life forced you to slow down, a delay, a loss, a season where plans fell apart. At the time you called it bad luck, pain, or confusion. But in hindsight, those were the moments you learned the most about yourself. Those were the moments when you realized who was real, what mattered, and what needed to change. The noise left and truth walked. God didn't create the pain, but he used the quiet it produced. Some of you are in a season right now where things feel unusually still. Fewer calls, fewer invitations, less validation. And instead of seeing it as rejection, God wants you to recognize it as recalibration. This is not a punishment. This is a pause with purpose. God is reducing the volume around you so you can hear the instructions within you. Because if he spoke now and in the middle of your chaos, you might confuse his voice with everyone else's opinion. Daily life teaches us this. If we pay attention, you don't hear your own thoughts clearly in a crowded room. You don't see stars in a bright city. You don't notice direction when you're running at full speed. Clarity requires contrast. Stillness sharpens awareness. And God is a master of timing. He knows when you're finally quiet enough to listen instead of argue, to receive instead of resist. This is why some answers come at 3 a.m. Not because the hour is magical, but because the noise is gone. No expectations, no performance, no pretending, just honesty. That's when God can reach you without filters. That's when your spirit is open. That's when fear stops talking and truth steps forward. If life has been slowing you down lately, don't rush to fill the space. Sit in it, breathe in it, listen in it, because what feels like emptiness might actually be God clearing the channel. And when He speaks, it won't be rushed, it won't be confusing, it will feel like a alignment. Like peace with direction, like a quiet confidence that doesn't need approval. God speaks when the noise stops, not because He's been silent, but because you're finally ready to hear. There are moments in life when waiting feels heavier than failing, when standing still hurts more than moving in the wrong direction. When you've done everything you know how to do and the only thing left is time, in those moments doubt starts whispering lies. It tells you that if it hasn't happened yet, it never will. It tells you that if the door didn't open when you knocked, then maybe the door was never meant for you. But God told me to wake you up to this truth. Delay is not denial. Time is not your enemy. It is God's instrument. Look at your everyday life. Think about how many things you rushed into because you were afraid of being left behind. You hurried into relationships before understanding yourself. You jumped into decisions because everyone else seemed ahead. And later you realized that speed cost you clarity. The delay you once hated could have protected you. God sees the whole picture while you only see the moment. What feels like waiting to you may actually be timing working in your favor. Consider how nature operates. Fruit does not ripen the moment it blooms. If it did, it would be weak, tasteless, and easily destroyed. It needs time under the sun, time through storms, time in the dark. In the same way, God refuses to release things too early when they would bring you instead of bless you. You keep calling it late, but God calls it prepared. What's coming needs a stronger version of you than the one you used to be. Think about the times you were thankful something didn't happen when you wanted it to. The job you didn't get that pushed you towards something better. The relationship that fell apart that saved you from years of pain. The opportunity that passed you by that would have drained your spirit. At the moment it felt like rejection. Later it revealed itself as redirection. God was not saying no. He was saying not yet, because you were still becoming. Every day, people confuse waiting with failure. They see someone else succeed faster and assume they've been forgotten. They scroll through highlight reels and compare behind-the-scenes realities. But God doesn't operate on comparison. He operates on completion. He finishes what He starts, and finishing requires time. Just because someone else arrived sooner doesn't mean they arrived ready. Some people reach destinations before they're equipped to handle what's waiting there. Delay builds things you cannot download, rush, or fake. It builds patience, it builds wisdom, it builds endurance. It teaches you how to stand without applause, how to trust without evidence, how to remain faithful when results are invisible. These are not wasted seasons, these are strengthening seasons. Muscles don't grow by being comfortable, they grow by resistance. The same resistance you're facing. G is developing a resilience you'll need later. Look at your own life. The moments that shaped you most were not the easy wins. They were the long nights, the unanswered questions, the days when progress felt invisible. Those were the days you learned discipline. Those were the days your character was formed. And character determines what you can hold when success finally arrives. God knows that giving you too much too soon could destroy you, so He allows delay to mature you. Sometimes God delays because what you're asking for is connected to other people's timing too. You're not waiting because you're unworthy, you're waiting because alignment takes time. There are conversations that need to happen, lessons others need to learn, doors that must open in sequence. God sees connections you cannot see. Trusting Him means believing that the wait has purpose even when you don't have clarity. Delay also reveals motives. It shows you whether you want the blessing or the growth that comes with it, whether you're committed or just curious. Anyone can stay excited when things move fast, but endurance, proves sincerity. God is not just interested in giving you something, He's invested in who you become while waiting for it. If you're in a season where it feels like nothing is moving, don't rush the process. Don't settle for shortcuts that cost you peace. Don't force doors that require maturity you haven't developed yet. What is meant for you cannot miss you, and what arrives at the time will last longer than anything you forced early. God told me to tell you this: the wait is not empty, it is full of preparation. The silence is not rejection, it is refinement. And when the moment comes, you will realize that every delay was shaping you into someone capable of sustaining the blessing. Delay is not denial. It is proof that God cares too much to release you before you're ready. Many people think struggle is a sign that something has gone wrong. They assume that if life gets hard, they must be off track, abandoned, or doing something wrong. But the truth God impressed on me is this: struggle is not chaos, it has intelligence. It carries information. It is not random. Every challenge you face is teaching you something you could not learn in comfort. The problem is not the struggle itself. The problem is when we suffer without listening. Look at how struggle shows up in everyday life. You start a new job and suddenly feel overwhelmed. You think, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But what if that pressure is sharpening your skills? What if the confusion is training your decision making? No one walks into growth feeling confident. Confidence is built by surviving moments you once doubted you could handle. Struggle introduces you to abilities you didn't know you had. Think about physical strength. Muscles don't grow by being left alone. They grow by being stressed, stretched, and slightly torn. The discomfort is not damage, it's development. In the same way, emotional and mental struggles are resistance training for your character. Every time you endure disappointment without quitting, you gain endurance. Every time you face fear without retreating, you gain courage. Your struggle is shaping you quietly, even when you feel weak. Daily life constantly confirms this truth. You don't learn patience when everything goes your way. You don't learn empathy when life is easy. You don't learn discipline without resistance. Struggle slows you down long enough to teach you what shortcuts never could. It reveals what matters, what doesn't, and who you are when things don't work out as planned. That revelation is priceless. Some of your struggles exist to expose patterns. You keep facing the same type of conflict, the same disappointment, the same emotional cycle. That repetition isn't punishment, it's instruction. Life repeats lessons until they're learned. God allows the struggle to return because there's wisdom still waiting to be picked up. Once you learn it, the struggle loses its power. What you understand can no longer control you. Struggle also has a way of filtering your environment. When things get hard, superficial connections fall away. Only what's real remains. You discover who supports you without convenience, who stays without benefit, and who only showed up when life was easy. That awareness is painful, but it is also protection. God uses struggle to remove distractions disguised as relationships. Think about how struggle humbles you. When things are going well, it's easy to rely on your own strength. But struggle forces you to slow down, to reflect, to acknowledge limitations. That humility is not weakness, it's alignment. When pride fades, wisdom grows. You become teachable. You listen differently. You move with intention instead of impulse. Struggle recalibrates your perspective. Some of you are frustrated because you don't see immediate results from your effort. You're working hard, showing up, doing the right things, yet progress feels invisible. But struggle teaches delayed gratification. It trains you to value process over applause. It builds integrity, the kind that doesn't depend on recognition. When success eventually comes, you won't be fragile because your foundation was formed under pressure. Struggle also strengthens your discernment. After being disappointed, you learn to choose more carefully. After being hurt, you learn boundaries. After being exhausted, you learn rest. These lessons are not theoretical, they are lived. That's why they last. God doesn't just want you to succeed, He wants you to succeed wisely. And wisdom is often born in struggle. Look back at your life honestly. The moments that defined you most were not the easy wins. They were the seasons that forced you to grow up, to let go, to adapt. You may not have chosen those moments, but they chose you. And because you survived them, you are not the same person you were before. That change is evidence that struggle has intelligence. If you are in a hard season right now, don't waste it by only complaining. Ask what it's teaching you. Ask what it's removing. Ask what is strengthening. Because one day you will look back and realize that the struggle didn't come to destroy you. It came to develop you. And once the lesson is learned, the struggle will no longer be necessary. There are moments when you look at your life and quietly wonder, why am I carrying this? The responsibility feels heavy. The expectations feel unfair. The pressure feels constant. And deep down, you question whether you're strong enough, wise enough, or capable enough to keep going. But here is the truth. Many people don't realize until much later, the very weight you're trying to escape is evidence of trust. God does not place heavy assignments on weak foundations. If it's in your hands, it's because you can handle it, even if you don't feel like it yet. Think about how often you talk yourself out of your own potential. You say things like, I'm not ready, I don't know enough, I'm not confident, or I need more time. But God already measured you before the assignment ever reached you. What feels overwhelming to you is familiar territory to Him. You see your limitations, God sees your capacity. And capacity often reveals itself only after responsibility arrives. Look at daily life. A parent doesn't feel ready the day they hold their child for the first time, yet something inside them rises to meet the moment. An employee doesn't feel fully qualified when they step into a new role, but growth begins the moment pressure demands it. No one ever feels prepared before responsibility stretches them. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a response. And God trusts your response more than your comfort. Some of you are exhausted, not because you were doing too much, but because you're carrying things you keep questioning instead of owning. You keep asking, why me? Instead of asking, what is this developing in me? That shift in perspective changes everything. When you see pressure as proof of trust instead of punishment, you stop shrinking under it and start rising through it. Think about the times you surprised yourself. Moments when you handled situations you once feared. Conversations you thought would break you but didn't. Losses you thought you'd never recover from, yet here you are. Those moments weren't accidents. They were confirmations. God was quietly showing you that you are more resilient than your doubts suggest. You didn't feel strong, but you were strong enough. Daily life constantly reflects this principle. You don't discover leadership in comfort. You discover it when others depend on you. You don't discover courage in theory. You discover it when fear shows up and you move anyway. God trusts you with challenges because challenges reveal who you truly are. Without pressure, potential stays hidden. Without responsibility, strength remains untested. Some of you are carrying emotional weight, family expectations, generational patterns, unspoken responsibilities. You wonder why you had to be the one to break cycles, to heal wounds, to stand firm when others gave up. It's because God saw something in you that you may not see yet. He trusted you to be the interruption. He trusted you to carry wisdom where others carried excuses. This trust doesn't mean the journey will be easy. It means it will be meaningful. God is not in terror. Instead, in protecting you from every hardship, He's invested in shaping your character, and character is forged in responsibility. The pressure is not there to crush you, it's there to activate you. Diamonds are not formed by being handled gently. They are formed under intense pressure over time. Think about how often you underestimate yourself because you're measuring your strength by how you feel instead of what you've survived. Feelings fluctuate. Capacity doesn't disappear. Even on your weakest days, you are still standing on lessons learned, skills built, and resilience earned. God trusts the version of you that experience has shaped, not the insecure voice in your head. Sometimes God trusts you more than you trust Him. You hesitate, but He doesn't. You doubt, but He doesn't withdraw the assignment. He knows that the growth you need cannot come without the responsibility you're trying to avoid. And every time you show up despite fear, you confirm His trust. If you're feeling stretched right now, take it as a sign. Not that you're failing, but that you're expanding. Growth always feels uncomfortable because it requires leaving familiar versions of yourself behind. God doesn't give heavy assignments to impress you. He gives them to reveal you to yourself. So instead of asking for the weight to be removed, ask for the wisdom to carry it well. Instead of questioning your ability, remember your history. You've survived more than you thought you could. You've adapted more than you thought you would. And you've grown more than you give yourself credit for. God trusts you more than you trust yourself. And if he placed it in your hands, it's because somewhere inside you is the strength to carry it, the wisdom to navigate it, and the resilience to finish it. There are moments in life when you look back and realize that the very thing you thought was sent to end you actually woke something up inside you. At the time, it felt like destruction. It felt like betrayal, loss, rejection, humiliation, or failure. You questioned your worth. You questioned your direction. You questioned why it had to hurt that deeply. But now, standing on the other side, you can feel it. You are not the same person you were before. What tried to destroy you activated you. Think about how pain works in daily life. When everything is comfortable, you move on autopilot. You repeat patterns. You tolerate things you shouldn't. You stay silent when you should speak. Comfort makes you passive, but pain demands attention. Pain forces you to stop, look, and decide. It wakes you up. That breakup you thought ruined you forced you to learn boundaries. That betrayal you didn't see coming taught you discernment. That failure you were embarrassed by taught you humility and strategy. Pain didn't come to erase you, it came to awaken you. Look at how rejection changes people. Before rejection, you may have been seeking approval, bending yourself to fit spaces that didn't honor you. Rejection hurts because it confronts identity, but after the pain settles, something shifts. You stop begging, you stop explaining, you stop shrinking, you begin to choose yourself. What once felt like abandonment becomes liberation. The door that closed pushed you toward rooms you would have never entered if you had stayed comfortable. Daily life proves this again and again. Athletes don't discover their limits during easy training days. They find them when muscles burn and lungs ache. Musicians don't refine their sound by avoiding mistakes. They refine it by playing through them. In the same way, life sharpens you through resistance. The pressure didn't weaken you. It revealed where you needed to grow. And once growth begins, activation follows. Some of you were activated by loss. Losing something precious stripped away illusions. It forced you to reevaluate priorities. You stopped chasing what looked good and started valuing what felt real. You learned gratitude. You learned presence. You learned that life is fragile and purpose cannot wait. That loss changed how you love, how you listen, how you live. What felt like an ending became a turning point. Others were activated by failure. Failure embarrassed you, slowed you down, humbled you. But it also taught you discipline. It taught you patience. It taught you to build skill instead of relying on talent alone. You learned how to recover. You learned how to try again without entitlement. Failure didn't disqualify you. It trained why. And now you move with wisdom instead of arrogance. Pain also activates courage. Before pain, you avoided confrontation. You stayed quiet to keep peace. But after being hurt, you learn that silence has a cost. You learn to speak up, to say no, to walk away. The very thing that wounded you taught you how to protect yourself. You didn't become cold, you became clear. That clarity is activation. Think about how often pain pushes people into purpose. Many people discover what they're called to do because of what they survived. They help others heal from what once hurt them. They guide others through paths they once walked blindly. Their message has weight because it was paid for in experience. What tried to destroy them became the source of their strength. Daily life shows us that pressure creates transformation. Fire doesn't destroy gold, it purifies it. Heat doesn't ruin steel, it strengthens it. In the same way, adversity doesn't automatically break people. It reveals them. It exposes resilience that comfort never could. It turns survival into wisdom. Some of you are stronger today, not because life was kind, but because it was hard. You learned to adapt. You learned to stand alone. You learned to rebuild. You learned that you don't need everything to go right to keep going. That knowledge lives in you now. It cannot be taken away. That is activation. Even the pain you didn't understand had purpose. The delay that frustrated you built patience. The disappointment, the tea crushed you refined your expectations. The struggle that exhausted you strengthened your endurance. You didn't come out unchanged, you came out equipped. The pain rearranged you so you could carry what's next. If you're in the middle of something right now that feels like it's breaking you, hear this clearly. Activation often feels like destruction at first. Growth doesn't announce itself politely. It disrupts, it shakes foundations, it forces endings. But on the other side of that disruption is a version of you that is more aware, more grounded, and more powerful than before. What tried to destroy you didn't win. It awakened courage. It sharpened wisdom. It strengthened resolve. It activated purpose. And one day you'll look back and realize that without that pain, you might have stayed asleep to who you were becoming. There comes a moment when you're still fighting, still stressing, still replaying situations in your mind, but something feels off. The emotion is loud, yet the situation is no longer active. You're exhausted from battles that no longer require your energy. That's because some seasons end quietly. They don't announce themselves. They don't throw a closing ceremony. They simply pass while you're still bracing for impact. God showed me this truth clearly. Your season changed before you notice. Think about how often this happens in daily life. You keep preparing for rejection from someone who already moved on. You keep defending yourself in conversations that no longer exist. You keep doubting yourself because of an opinion that has already lost its power. The moment passed, but your mind stayed behind. And while you're guarding against yesterday, today is waiting for you to show up fully. Look at how habits form. You outgrow a place, but you keep returning emotionally. You leave a job, but the stress follows you home months later. You end a relationship, but you still argue with the memory. The environment changed, but the mindset didn't. God moves seasons faster than we move perceptions. And many times we miss the shift because we're still rehearsing the pain of what used to be. Daily life offers subtle signs when a season ends. The effort feels heavier than it used to. The motivation fades without explanation. What once fulfilled you now drains you. That's not laziness. That's transition. God is signaling that the chapter has closed, but you're still reading it out of habit. And habits are powerful. They convince you to stay where you no longer belong. Some of you are fighting battles that already resolved themselves. You're trying to prove something to people who are no longer watching. You're seeking validation from places that have already moved on. And the cost is peace. God doesn't want you exhausted by expired struggles. He wants you aware enough to recognize when it's time to lift your head and move forward. Think about how often fear lingers longer than the threat. You walk into new rooms carrying old insecurities. You approach new opportunities expecting old outcomes. But the danger you're preparing for no longer exists. The rejection you fear already lost its authority. God already changed the environment. You just haven't updated your expectations yet. Life teaches us this through growth. Children outgrow clothes without realizing it until something feels tight. You've outgrown certain fears, mindsets, and limitations, but you're still trying to fit into them. That discomfort is not failure, it's evidence of growth. God is nudging you to stop shrinking for spaces that no longer fit who you become. Some seasons end because you learned the lesson, you gained the wisdom, you developed the strength. And once the lesson is learned, the season has no reason to continue. But if you don't recognize the shift, you'll keep repeating behaviors that belong to a version of you that no longer exists. God doesn't need you to relive what you already overcame. Daily life also shows how quickly things can change without drama. One day you wake up and realize you don't feel the same about something anymore. The anger is gone. The attachment has loosened. The fear has quieted. That's not numbness. That's healing. God already did the internal work, but you keep looking for external confirmation. Some of you are waiting for closure when closure already came in the form of peace. You're waiting for an apology when freedom already arrived through understanding. You're waiting for permission to move on when God already released you. The season changed, but you're still asking questions meant for yesterday. Recognizing a new season requires awareness. It means paying attention to what no longer triggers you the same way. It means noticing that your reactions have softened. It means realizing you're stronger than the situation that once overwhelmed you. That's not coincidence. That's progress. God doesn't always end seasons with loud victories. Sometimes he ends them by quietly removing the weight. And if you don't notice, you'll keep carrying something that was already lifted. You'll keep guarding doors that are already closed. You'll keep preparing for storms that already passed. If life feels lighter but unfamiliar, don't panic. You're not losing control, you're gaining freedom. You're stepping into a new season without the armor you used to need. And that feels strange because struggle became familiar. Lift your head, take a breath, look around. The environment has changed. The air is different. The weight is gone. God already moved you forward. Now it's time for your mind, your habits, and your expectations to catch up with where he's already taken you. There comes a moment when you realize that waiting for perfect clarity has quietly become an excuse for staying still. You tell yourself you'll move when everything makes sense, when fear disappears, when the path feels safe. But life doesn't reward certainty. It responds to movement. God impressed this truth deeply. Act. Acceleration begins the moment obedience shows up. Not when you feel ready, not when all answers are visible, but when you move anyway. Look at daily life. You don't fully understand how a seed grows, yet you still plant it. You don't see roots forming underground, yet you still water the soil. You trust the process enough to act before results appear. Obedience works the same way. It's not blind, it's brave. It's choosing action without the comfort of full explanation. And once movement begins, momentum follows. Think about how often hesitation slows progress. You wait for confidence, but confidence is built after action, not before it. You wait for motivation, but motivation responds to commitment. You wait for confirmation, but confirmation often comes while you're already moving. God doesn't release acceleration to intention, he releases it to obedience. Movement signals trust, and trust invites speed. Daily life proves this constantly. When you start a new habit, the first few days feel slow and uncomfortable. But once consistency kicks in, progress accelerates. When you begin a difficult conversation, the fear is strongest before the first word. After you speak, relief and clarity follow. The hardest part is starting. Obedience breaks inertia. And once inertia breaks, acceleration takes over. Some of you are stuck, not because you lack ability, but because you're overthinking alignment. You want guarantees before you commit, but guarantees kill growth. God never promised discomfort. He promised guidance, and guidance only works when you're moving. GPS doesn't redirect parked cars. It adjusts paths for those already in motion. Think about opportunities you missed because you waited too long. Not because you weren't capable, but because you hesitated. The door didn't close because you were rejected. It closed because timing required movement. Obedience respects timing more than fear respects safety. When God nudges you forward, delay can cost momentum. Daily life also shows how obedience simplifies complexity. When you act on what you already know, confusion begins to clear. You stop asking every opinion. You stop replaying scenarios. Movement silences unnecessary noise. Direction sharpens when you're willing to take the first step without seeing the staircase. Some of you are praying for clarity while ignoring instructions you already received. You already know the conversation you need to have. You already know the habit you need to change. You already know the step you need to take. Obedience is not about discovering new information. It's about honoring what's already been revealed. And the moment you honor it, acceleration follows. Think about how trust works in relationships. Trust grows when actions match words. God responds the same way. When you move in alignment with what you've been given, more is released. Not because God was holding back, but because you're now positioned to handle more. Movement proves capacity, acceleration do. Doesn't mean things become easy. It means things become purposeful. Resistance may still exist, but progress outpaces doubt. You move faster not because obstacles disappear, but because obedience sharpens focus. You stop fighting everything and start flowing with direction. Daily life teaches us that momentum is powerful. Once a car reaches speed, small adjustments keep it moving, but getting it started takes the most energy. Obedience is ignition. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but once movement begins, grace meets you on the road. Some of you are one decision away from momentum, one conversation, one step, one act of courage, and fear keeps telling you to wait. But waiting without instruction leads to stagnation. Obedience breaks the cycle. It turns hesitation into progress. God doesn't accelerate plans that stay in your head. He accelerates actions that align with trust. You don't need the full map, you need the next step. And when you take it, the pace changes. Doors open faster. Resources appear unexpectedly. Connections align naturally. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because you finally moved in the right direction. If you feel stuck, don't ask for more information. Ask yourself what you already know but haven't acted on. That's where acceleration is hiding. Obedience unlocks movement. Movement unlocks momentum. And momentum changes everything. There are moments when life feels like it's winding down instead of opening up. You feel tired, uncertain, even discouraged. You start wondering if the best chapters are already behind you. But here is the truth God impressed on me clearly. As long as you are still breathing, purpose is still active. The presence of breath is proof of assignment. Ending only comes when purpose is complete. And if you're here, the story is still being written. Look at daily life. Every morning you wake up, even when you don't feel excited, something inside you keeps going. You may call it routine, but it's more than that. It's evidence. You didn't wake yourself up. You didn't restart your heart. Life was given to you again quietly, without ceremony. That alone is a signal that you are still needed. Purpose doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up as endurance. Think about how often people confuse exhaustion with completion. You're tired, so you assume you're done. You're discouraged, so you think you missed your moment. But fatigue doesn't mean finish. It means you've been carrying something meaningful for a long time. Even machines wear down when they're useful. Weariness is not a sign to quit. It's a sign to rest, adjust, and continue. Daily life shows us this through growth. A book isn't finished because the middle chapters get intense. A journey doesn't end because the road gets steep. Athletes don't stop playing because the game is hard. The challenge intensifies because the moment matters. In the same way, the pressure you feel now isn't a signal of ending. It's a signal of transition. Some of you believe your past disqualifies you. You think mistakes erased your purpose. But purpose is not fragile. It adapts, it evolves, it survives detours. The fact that you learned, changed, and kept going proves purpose is still alive in you. If God was finished with you, you wouldn't be learning anymore. Growth is evidence of ongoing assignment. Think about how often life reinvents people. Someone changes careers later than expected. Someone starts over after loss. Someone finds clarity after confusion. These are not failures, they are recalibrations. Purpose doesn't follow your timeline, it follows readiness. And readiness often arrives after struggle, not before. Daily life also reminds us that purpose doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's in showing up when you don't feel like it, in being consistent when no one is watching, in choosing integrity when shortcuts are available. These quiet decisions carry weight. Impact isn't always loud. Some of the most powerful influence happens in ordinary moments handled with intention. Some of you are measuring purpose by visibility. You think if people don't notice, it doesn't matter. But purpose is not validated by applause. It's validated by alignment. You may never see the full impact of your words, your example, your kindness, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. Seeds grow underground long before they're visible. Breathing means opportunity. It means possibility. It means there's still something you can learn, someone you can help, something you can build. Purpose isn't limited to one role or season. It shifts as you grow. And as long as you're alive, growth is still available. Think about how endings actually feel in life. They bring closure, not curiosity. They bring stillness, not restlessness. If you still feel a pull, a nudge, a desire to become more, that's not frustration. That's purpose calling you forward. Restlessness is often a sign that there's more ahead, not that something is wrong. Some of you are afraid because life doesn't look how you imagined. But purpose doesn't require perfect conditions. It works with what's available. It finds ways to express itself through your current season, not an ideal one. You don't need everything to be right to move forward. You just need to be willing. If you woke up today, purpose woke up with you. If you're still breathing, something still needs your voice, your experience, your presence. This is not the end. It's a signal that there is still work to do, still growth to experience, still impact to make. Don't rush to conclude what God hasn't finished. Don't label a chapter as the end when it's simply a turning point. As long as breath remains, purpose remains, and your next step matters more than you realize.